With me today, I have Julia C. Rock. She is a keynote speaker, leadership consultant, and certified executive coach dedicated to uncomplicating leadership and eliminating burnout from modern workplace. She is the founder and CEO at Rock Career Development, a boutique consulting firm that partners with organizations to reduce employee turnover and increase long-term profitability through customized leadership development solutions.
There are very simple things that can help you to be an effective leader, and I call those the 5 C's of uncomplicated leadership. Clarity, consistency, connection, courage, and celebration. It's just those 5 things. That's all your employees want from you, but it requires intention. It requires you to change how you show up. It requires you to throw out the rule book of what every other leader has told you with all their 4,000 different frameworks and assessments. I used to take being brutally honest as being rude or inappropriate. And what I realized over time is that the leaders who kept trying to tiptoe, their people were always confused about expectations. They were confused about their performance. So when the time came to either let someone go or put them on a performance plan, then people were blindsided, like, well, wait, I never got that messaging, right? Because a person was too nice or delicate with the message. And so what I had to learn was that my team wants me to be direct. My team wants me to be clear with my expectations. I don't need to be like anybody else. Being Julia is good enough. And that's really where the shift came for me, was that when I finally owned my own style, for lack of a better word, instead of trying to be like everyone else, because my team then saw me and was able to relate to me versus some other kind of mythical version of who the leader should be. So I think the introduction of AI has caused some impact both for leaders and employees, because instead of being asked to truly collaborate with the technology, and really have it be a partnership, it seems like a push to replace humans. So if I'm a human worker, I'm scared, right? Gas is $5 a gallon right now. And then it's like, is my job on the line? And I have to still come to work every day and show up and smile. And it's hard.
Welcome to Iron and Empathy. I'm your host, Drew Moldenhauer. Iron and Empathy is sponsored by Blue Ethos Specialized Training, a national leader in workplace violence prevention, active threat preparedness, and de-escalation training. At Blue Ethos, we don't just focus on safety. We help organizations improve workplace culture by strengthening communication, increasing situational awareness, and creating environments where people feel supported, empowered, and prepared to intervene early before problems escalate. If this is your first time listening to Iron and Empathy, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Let's get into today's conversation. With me today, I have Julia C. Rock. She is a keynote speaker, leadership consultant, and certified executive coach dedicated to uncomplicating leadership and eliminating burnout from modern workplace. She is the founder and CEO at Rock Career Development, a boutique consulting firm that partners with organizations to reduce employee turnover and increase long-term profitability through customized leadership development solutions. Welcome, Julia. Where are you joining us from today?
Thank you, Drew. I'm excited to be here. So I'm joining from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Fantastic. Been out there a few times. Always a good time when I head out to Vegas. So that's fantastic. And how is the weather out there?
It's beautiful here. It's not too hot yet. Everyone keeps talking about the summer, but I moved here from Houston, Texas. So I know a thing or two about hot, humid, and summer. At least Las Vegas is dry heat. But the weather out here is it's awesome right now.
Fantastic. Well, I'm jealous. It's still pretty cold. I'm up in Minnesota and, it can get pretty nasty. I think it was 40 degrees this morning, but hey, the sun's shining. So, hey, that's all good. So
sending warm vibes your way, sending warm vibes.
Well, thank you. I need some of that. So, Julia, can you please give us a little bit about your background and what got you into the amazing work that you're doing today?
Man, so what's interesting is I started this work way back in college. So what people don't know is that I was helping people from a career perspective for free for 7 years. So through the end of college and into my corporate career, I was helping people for free in terms of resumes and career development, career coaching, all of that. And finally, I got to the point where, a friend of mine said, hey, you should probably start charging for this, right? He got his free help and then told me to charge other people. But it was that kind of impetus, like talking to him to say, okay, now it's time for me to launch this into a business. And I didn't come from an HR background. My background is in finance. So a lot of what I share and teach is lived experience, either through my own career or through the clients I've coached. And over time, what I realized was that I kept hearing the same complaints over and over from the folks I was coaching, where yes, they got the new job and they liked the job, but they had a problem with the management or the culture. And so after I heard that several times, I began to wonder, maybe I'm serving the wrong client. Maybe maybe I need to better serve the organizations and the leadership so that when people get hired, they're not looking for the next thing, right? And so I wanted to create better work environments so that my clients who kept coming back for support, they wouldn't have to keep coming back in that way. Maybe they're coming back for a promotion or something else, but not because my organization's not treating me well or I'm having challenges with my boss. And so that's really how I made the shift from that career development focused work into leadership development, because I realized that I was hearing the same challenges. And then also going through my own corporate career, seeing what the phenomenal leaders did well and what they got out of their teams, and then what the, let's say, not so phenomenal leaders, what did they do or what did they lack, and then what resulted in their teams. And so seeing that live, as well as with serving my clients, I realized, okay, maybe I need to make a shift here in terms of creating a different impact in organizations.
Fantastic. And you're right. Some of the biggest life lessons that you can learn is actually from poor leadership. I mean, that's where a lot of mine was. And just coming from my background, being a police officer and then college professor, now owning my own business, I've seen some of that along the way. And it's like, holy cow, you can really take some good lessons from that. So you say leadership isn't complicated. It's just hard. I love that. Break that down for us. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I like to give an analogy for folks. So think about someone who needs to lose weight, or if it's you, you're thinking, hey, I need to lose weight. We know that the formula is you've got to work out more, increase your energy output, and you have to decrease your calorie intake. So on its face, it's not complicated. It's a very simple formula, but it is hard because of what it requires of you and what it exacts from you, right? You've got to completely shift how you show up. You have to be intentional. You have to make sacrifices. So it's the same thing with leadership. There are very simple things that can help you to be an effective leader. And I call those the 5 C's of uncomplicated leadership: clarity, consistency, connection, courage, and celebration. It's just those 5 things. That's all your employees want from you. But it requires intention. It requires you to change how you show up. It requires you to throw out the rule book of what every other leader has told you with all their 4,000 different frameworks and assessments. And so that's really the idea behind the fact that it's not really complicated. It's just hard because it requires more work and intentionality.
Yeah, and you think about that, it requires probably some discipline as well, and, emotions start getting involved. Just like I love your metaphor for losing weight because, yeah, it seems like a simple process, but then other things start coming up in the way. It's, just less calories than more, working out, not sitting on the couch, but that requires some discipline. That requires some more stuff. So I like the way that you broke that down. Now, can you share a story of a leader or organization that was overcomplicating leadership and what changed when they just simplified it? Something in your own life.
Man, so I'll give you an example of being in between 2 departments in the same organization. So I was in one group that was in the headquarters location, and they rolled out this leadership culture. I mean, it was this 2-year rollout, and I mean, lots of people working behind it, and they were so excited. They had all these PDFs and things to help guide us, and I didn't see the change in any of my management behavior. They all had the same, whether it was bad attitudes or lack of one-on-ones or team interaction. There was nothing that changed. And I said, we did all this work and you guys are nothing has happened. But Then I got on a team with one of my former bosses, and she didn't use any sort of PDF or anything. She never told us what her leadership style was or that she was an ENTJ or none of that. But what she did was she was just very present for all of us. We almost called her like the team mom because, she was so invested in all of our success. She found opportunities for us to shine, certain things she would purposely not go to so that one of us could have that. And I said, and that was one of the biggest light bulbs for me. I said, she has not once mentioned her leadership style to me. She has not once told me anything about her leadership study or framework or leadership culture, nothing. She has literally just showed up for us. And we spent all that time in the other headquarters department working on this culture framework at 2 years investment, and nothing has changed. And so that kind of solidified to me in the most kind of like uncertain terms that, or most certain terms that it's just like, this is not that hard. I mean, it's not that complicated. It's just hard because obviously it took a lot out of her to have to show up for us because she had her own family. She had, her own life and things, but she still made sure that she was very present for us, supportive. She sacrificed on our behalf. She advocated on our behalf. And I'm like, this is all it really requires because we would literally go into battle for that woman. Her name's Erica. If you're listening, Erica, thank you. But we would literally go into battle for her and with no questions asked because of how she showed up. And it had nothing to do with any sort of fancy framework or assessment.
That's fantastic. And you take a look at it, that's kind of what the basis of the stuff you're talking about is. She made it uncomplicated. She didn't have to give you all the PDFs. She didn't have to give you her leadership style. She just had an influence on you that all of you wanted to follow. And what I find interesting, and some of the past guests that I've had on here too, is when you have a leader like that, it seems like they will own stuff for the team. And then you'll start seeing that the team will start owning stuff for their leader. And right. when you get that, that's just such a great positive culture that you have. So what did this organization with her, what did you guys stop doing and what did you start doing instead? Was it just making things more uncomplicated that made it better?
And I would say that we stopped waiting for permission to do things. We took on a lot of initiative ourselves because again, we wanted to do battle for her. We wanted to make her look good. So we were willing to take on different things. And then what we found is that, we stopped trying to perfect everything, right? Because that wasn't her style. It's like, let's get it done. Let's iterate. Let's have the conversation. Let's move things forward. Let's not agonize over every mistake or misstep. And so we were able to do things. We were more honest with one another to say, hey, this didn't go well, or this is a problem. And so that we could find solutions more quickly, which helped us also to become more collaborative. And I think that's the piece that leaders miss, is that just that push for perfection on your own part, it then sets the wrong tone with the rest of the organization because they feel like, okay, I can't bring this forward. They try to sanitize the message, or they stop trying new things because like, I don't want to step out of line. And seeing her like, hey, we're just going to try this. And if it doesn't go well, let's talk about it. And let's see what we fix. So then amongst ourselves. And then when I stepped into more senior leadership, I adopted that same principle. I'll give you a quick anecdote. So I had gone to Europe on a business trip and my team was back home in Baton Rouge, and they were like, no, Julie, we've got it. We're going to hold down the fort. And I'm like, okay, guys, let me know if you need anything. And so one day I got a call from my lead analyst, and he shared with me that something had gone wrong. And I said, okay, well, do we know what it is to fix? Have we talked to the right people? He's like, yes, all of that. And I said, okay, take care of it. And he's like, wait, that's it? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say. He was like, man, we were like kind of drawing straws as to who would have to call Julia to tell her this. And I said, it's not that big of a deal, guys, especially since you already have a path forward. We've learned from it, document what we've learned. Let's move on. And I don't think I would have had that same kind of mindset had I not had those kinds of examples like Erica and others who are just like, we are not going to agonize about every small thing. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be effective. Right. And so that, I mean, I'm always going to be grateful to leaders like her who set the right example.
No, that's fantastic. And what you described to me is pretty much the definition of a good psychologically safe environment. I mean, everything you talked about where people aren't afraid to speak up, in that environment, they feel comfortable to do it. They're not afraid to make mistakes, because if we're making mistakes and we're able to not be afraid of that, then we'll just correct each other and work through it. But if we're afraid to make mistakes, we'll hide them. Then people don't want to reach out, and then you're talking about the calculated risks, just like she talked about, like, let's go ahead and go with this. If it works, it does. If it doesn't, I'll take the rap for it, but we'll move on. So sounds like that foundation of setting that up with good leadership is good psychological safety as well. Would you say the same thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because people shouldn't come to work feeling afraid that if I make a misstep that I'm going to be publicly shamed and, in the town square, right? Yeah. It should be that, hey, okay, there's an acknowledgement of where we went wrong and how do we do this better? But it's that we see mistakes as learning opportunities rather than, okay, you're a failure. This is all, everything has gone to hell in a handbasket. And so that then allows people to do their best creative work, to be more innovative, to take a calculated risk, but take risks nonetheless to help push the organization forward instead of staying stagnant or being on the back end of change. And I guess that's the other thing too. It helps you to embrace organizational change. What I have seen where people have wanted perfection, that's when you have technology implementations that stall or new things that stall because someone's like, well, it doesn't meet our 4,000 different requirements, so we've got to keep this archaic system from 1995. And it's like, well, yes, we want it to work, but it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. And so being willing to embrace that change also helps to just move the organization forward and not stay in the past.
I agree. And I think that's why it's so important to have people that are conversation openers versus killers in that room, right? So you have those conversation openers that say exactly what you're saying. We need a change. How can we do that? We've been doing it the same way since the Reagan administration. I think it's time that we look at something new versus that conversation killer just says, nope, we've been doing it the same way and we're just going to keep it. That's such an old school mentality, and you're not open for that conversation. You're just killing them. So I think that's a really important part of leadership in those teams. Now, you talk about getting back to basics and putting people first, which I completely agree with. What does that actually look like in the real world, especially when things get stressful?
Yeah. So part of it is, one thing that I don't think will come up with most people is vulnerability. When it comes to putting people first, it's about you willing to be vulnerable with your people as well, and not just expecting them to share things with you. I'll give you an example. When I was leading a team in Argentina, and we had to return to the office, and the leadership team that was reporting to me, they voiced concerns and frustration around, why do we have to come back? This is going to cause stress for many of our team members and so forth. And I could have easily taken the party line and said, well, hey, this is what the company's saying. Let's all just charge through, right? But what I chose to do instead was just say, you know what, guys, I'm frustrated too. I don't really have any answers. But what I will ask you guys to do is, if you're willing to band with me on this so that we can help bring the organization through this, because I don't have this say on whether or not we do this, right? This is truly a corporate directive that will negatively impact our organization if we don't comply with it. So I can give you the talking points, but I'll be honest, I don't get it either. And so, and I said, I will continue to advocate on our behalf as to why this is problematic for us. But in the interim, I'm going to need your support. And one of my team members came to me afterwards and said, thank God, because I thought we were in this by ourselves. I thought we were crazy. But to hear you say that you too don't get it, that lets us know that you're in it with us. So we fully understand that corporate directives come, and a lot of times you don't have as much wiggle room as you'd like, but knowing that you're at least on our side and willing to advocate for us, that goes a long way. And so that made a difference for me in that people are not expecting you to be perfect. They want to hear when things are frustrating you and when, when you're bothered by something or when you don't have the answers. And so that's one of the key things that I would say in terms of putting people first. It's also about you being vulnerable with your people. And one of the other things that I don't think, I talked about the 5 C's, but one that I don't think goes, that gets enough airtime is the celebration piece. So like I said, there's 5 C's, clarity, consistency, connection, courage, and celebration. And what most organizations do with the celebration piece is, let's give you a gift card. Let's give you the pizza. Let's have the ice cream. And it's like, I never said I was hungry. Who said I was hungry?
Right. I'm on my macro diet. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You're blowing this up. What people are looking for is, that they just want to they want to feel seen. They want their work to be recognized in a meaningful way. And what goes a lot farther than those gift cards and the pizza parties is that you going by and saying, you know what, Drew, thank you. You did an awesome job on that. And I just wanted to make sure that you heard it from me directly. And because that for you lets you know that, man, my boss actually cares about the work that I'm doing. It's easy to throw a gift card at someone. It's another thing for you to say, I saw what you did on that thing, or that presentation was awesome, or that speech you get, whatever it might have been. That goes a long way. So those are a couple of the things that that leaders can do to really put folks first that are free. Right. They always think they have to pay for something or add some new gimmick or team building, which I call forced fun. Cause you all have to go to the designated place that we didn't agree to at the designated time we didn't agree to. Right. But these are things that are free and easy to do that really allows your people to feel seen and valued.
I love that. And you mentioned something, and it's so relatable, Julia, because you talked about it. And I remember as just a young patrol officer, once you get about 5 years in, you start questioning some of the things that the administration does, just like I'm sure in corporate. You're excited right away, but then after about 5 years, you're like, why are we doing this? And I remember a new policy was coming down that none of us could understand why we were doing what we were doing. And our sergeant at the time, he was very good. He was one of the worst ones, or one of the best ones, I should say, I ever worked for. And he showed his vulnerability at that time too. And he said, I really don't get this, but I'm going to continue to ask. But these are, what is coming down. But when he did that, that did show a lot of respect, that he was like, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really understand why we're doing this. But then that really took the team and put us together. And I also love the point that you talk about where you don't have to do the forced fun, the pizza party, everything, even little things like handwritten notes or, going to people and telling them how good they are. A lot of people say, oh, I don't need that appreciation. Yeah, right. People love it. They do. I mean, so many people will say like, oh, I don't need to have that. But at the end of the day, they love being recognized. And I think especially if you praise people in public and you say, hey, this person did this great job. I mean, who doesn't love that? So I love what you're talking about with that. Now, you focus on eliminating burnout, which I think is huge, and especially in today's world where we're just running all over the place. What are you seeing right now in leaders and teams that's driving burnout the most, would you say?
As a couple of different things. One, I think for leaders, they're consistently being asked to do more with less. And especially in this kind of AI type of space, right? It's like, just take this new software or just take this new thing. And leaders are like, wait, what? Right. So, they haven't fixed the underlying processes or anything. And so they're being told to embrace this software. So they've got fewer people, and the people that are left, they're anxious about them being next. Right. So the leaders are trying to manage all of that, and they're not getting the right level of support. And they're seeing the headlines of this company laying off this group and this group and this group. So the leaders themselves are also wondering, am I on the chopping block? And so I think the introduction of AI has caused some impact both for leaders and employees, because instead of being asked to truly collaborate with the technology, and really have it be a partnership, it seemed like a push to replace humans. So if I'm a human worker, I'm scared, right? Gas is $5 a gallon right now. And then it's like, is my job on the line? And I have to still come to work every day and show up and smile. And it's hard. And one of the things that I will also say in some of the client conversations that I've had recently is just for companies where they feel like there's a value shift for them, where many of them, maybe when they first started, the company had a certain level of values or a vision, but now whether it's AI or some other need, they find that the company's values are shifting and they don't see where they fit anymore. And so they're coming to work and they're smiling, but it's like, I don't feel this fit anymore. I don't feel this alignment. And so that internal kind of dissonance is also just pushing them towards burnout. And then I will just say, I think for a lot of people, it's just the pace of work that's coming, and there's not enough compensation to go along with that, right? So if you're struggling to feed your family or balance things at home, and then you just feel like there's work piling on, or you're asked to be doing a lot, then that also drives some burnout. So there's a lot of different things. And then one other thing that I will say is also, and it goes back to one of the 5 C's as well, is around consistency, right? Organizations were saying, work from home forever, be balanced. We love that for you. Awesome. And then now you fast forward to 2026 and it's like, no, never mind. Come on back, everybody. Right. And it's like, well, wait, I set up my life a certain way and I thought I had a good balance. And companies have the right to do with their organizations what they want to do. I'm not going to take that from them, but they can't be surprised when people are exasperated because you championed one thing, a year or two ago, and then now you're just like, never mind that. We're going to do something completely different. And if you don't get on board, you're going to get fired. It's like, well, so much for this loyalty that I had been giving this organization and this support. And now I have to completely uproot my life and do this, or I lose my livelihood. And so I think that just so many of these things are just weighing on people right now and driving the burnout.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I have a couple friends that had that same thing where they were told, you can work from home. So they moved away and now they're saying, no, you're coming back in the office. And now they're working on having to move back to the state of Minnesota to do that. And it's, exactly what you're talking about. Like, consistency is huge. And then when you pull the rug out from some people, it can get them pretty upset. So that's a huge thing. And, if to make this really relatable, if someone's listening right now and is leading a team and feels overwhelmed, what are 2 or 3 simple things they can start doing tomorrow to simplify their leadership, would you say?
The biggest thing, well, and I'm going to keep plugging the 5 C's, but no, it's really about clarity, right? When you feel a sense of overwhelm, that means something is now fuzzy to you in terms of priorities and where you need to be focusing your efforts. So it's really about resetting and saying, well, what is it that my team is supposed to achieve? And what does success look like to me right now? Because that will then help you to recalibrate on, okay, if they don't fall into these buckets, that means I can probably park them, delegate them, stop doing them, whatever it might be. And then it also helps you to think about, the clarity piece is also thinking about, who am I without this job? A lot of leaders, they tie their identity and their value and their self-worth to their title and the jobs they have. And they're so scared of losing that they will take on and take on and take on because they can't lose that. And so part of the clarity work is not just what success looks like and what the team vision is. It's also about, who am I without this job? If it all goes to hell tomorrow, who am I without it? Because then that allows you to operate from a different level of confidence and balance, because I don't have to kill myself, because this doesn't mean if I don't get this done today, that doesn't mean I'm a failure and that I don't have any value. It just means that, hey, this is something that I may need to park or change the deadline on. So those are some of the things I would say. It starts with clarity. Overwhelm is driven by a lack of clarity about something, and spending some time there can help you to get started as soon as tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a big one. Being clear with everyone. Yeah, clarity is huge. And one of the things I'm very excited about is your book, Uncomplicated Leadership, is coming out soon. Congratulations. I mean, that's fantastic. I know how hard that is to write that. So, and what pushed you to write it, and who is this book really for, if you had to say, Julia?
Well, what pushed me to write it, if I'm being honest, I just felt like the leadership content, just a lot of it is saying the same thing. And it just wasn't landing. I said, because if all the leadership advice people were giving was useful, we wouldn't see high turnover in organizations. We wouldn't see this level of burnout. People wouldn't be, people would feel psychologically safe at work. And so I'm like, maybe the messages have been too sanitized when it comes to leadership, or maybe it's just been too theoretical or kind of academic in nature. What if we just said the simple things and said the thing in a very direct way? How would that change things? And so that's what really drove me to write the book. And so what I would say in terms of who this book is for, it's really for the leader who is also just tired of the BS, right? Who's just like, okay, I need something better than go take a DISC assessment. And I say that as someone who's a certified DISC practitioner, right? It's like, I don't need to take another assessment. Like, something has to shift, and what I'm doing it's not working. And this conventional advice, it isn't getting me there. It's applicable to all levels of leadership, because I know there's nuance between, first line leaders and an executive, and there's some nuance for that in the book. But it's for all leaders, but it's really the leader who's tired of the BS and realizes there's a better way that they just haven't landed on yet, and they're open to exploring what that simpler, uncomplicated way might be.
Fantastic. And I think that's a very important in today's world. And we talked a little bit about this as in the beginning. We talked about there's some leaders that, were poor and made some bad decisions. And then in our own lives, there's things that we have done that we have learned from. And I can tell you, I've made a million mistakes, and I've learned from all of them in a really good way. And looking back at your own journey, what's something you used to overcomplicate as a leader that now you've simplified?
So one of the things that when I think back, it was trying to be too much like the other leaders that I had seen before, and trying to tiptoe around other things instead of just being myself and being brutally honest. I'm from Brooklyn. And I used to take being brutally honest as being rude or inappropriate. And what I realized over time is that the leaders who kept trying to tiptoe, their people were always confused about expectations. They were confused about their performance. And so when the time came to either let someone go or put them on a performance plan, then people were blindsided, like, well, wait, I never got that messaging, right? Because a person was too nice or delicate with the message. And so what I had to learn was that my team wants me to be direct. My team wants me to be clear with my expectations. I don't need to be like anybody else. Being Julia is good enough. And that's really where the shift came for me, was that when I finally owned my own style, for lack of a better word, instead of trying to be like everyone else, because my team then saw me and was able to relate to me versus some other kind of mythical version of who the leader should be. So yeah, that's where I would say the shift happened for me.
Yeah. Be yourself. No, that's huge. It's so much easier. I love that. Now, Julia, can you recommend 2 books for my audience that you think that they should read based on your past history with this and things that really helped you along the way?
Yeah, so I would say that I love the book 12-Week Year by Brian Moran, because it completely shifts how you set goals. And this can be truly helpful with even your own organization, because when you set this long strategic plan, right, it just feels daunting. It's like, good Lord, we've got this 5-year plan and this 3-year plan, and it's just, you're overwhelmed. But if you use something like the 12-week year, which allows you to break things down into those kind of 12-week chunks, so you can still achieve those long-term goals, but it's like, what are the things we can do as a unit? What's measurable? What will give us momentum and keep folks energized? So I love that kind of, breaking it down into chunks kind of methodology. And then the second book, of course, would be Uncomplicated Leadership. Pre-orders going live on May 25th.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, May 25th. And you got to go with that one. Absolutely. That would be a great one. Well, I like both those. I haven't read either of them, but I definitely am going to put those in my Amazon cart so that I can take a look at that. So
awesome.
And then, Julia, how can people get a hold of you? I know you do some keynote speaking, some coaching. What else? How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, the easiest way to get a hold of me is just to send me an email. So it's hello@rockcareer.com. Either myself or my team will be able to take a look at that. So hello@rockcareer.com. And then my website is rockcareer.com. So we have a contact form there, and people can also look over the services. And then I'm also really active on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is one of my favorite platforms. I'm a top voice there. And so if you send me a LinkedIn DM or request, that's an easy way to get in front of me pretty easily. So I'm accessible pretty much everywhere. So would love to connect with anyone who's listening.
Well, fantastic. And a lot of my audience is public safety, human resource folks, that kind of way too. Is there a keynote that fits really well with this kind of group that, for you for speaking engagements?
Yes. So I've actually done some work for law enforcement. I have a keynote. It's called Leaders Lead, and it really breaks. So the LEAD framework is it's something that I internally developed in my organization, and it really breaks down the 4 pieces about listen, engage, assess, and develop in terms of how to lead your organization and develop your talent. And when I've done it with law enforcement, it talks a lot about the high stakes environment that law enforcement deals with, and why this framework is so important to make sure that the officers and others that you're working with are energized on that mission and not kind of resting on their laurels, and they're not, being complacent. So that's one specifically that I've done with law enforcement.
Fantastic. Julia, this was a great conversation. I love your message about getting back to the basics and leading in a way that actually supports people. Thanks for coming on and sharing this with us. Make sure to check out her book, Uncomplicated Leadership, available for pre-order May 25th. You're going to want to get the hands on that one. And to everyone listening, thank you for being a part of Iron and Empathy. If you found value in this episode, share it with someone who needs to, and keep showing up, getting better, and leading with both strength and empathy. Thank you very much.